The strange signals began on a Tuesday afternoon. Dr. Alan Carter had been reviewing data from the Arecibo Observatory's deep space monitoring systems when he noticed something unusual. At first, he thought it was a glitch. The pattern seemed too regular, too purposeful to be natural cosmic noise. "Nancy, take a look at this," he called to his colleague, Dr. Nancy Hoffman, who was analyzing star formation data nearby. She rolled her chair across the room and squinted at his screen. "That's odd. When did this start coming in?" "About 3 hours ago. It's been consistent." Ellen zoomed in on the waveform. "This isn't random. There's structure here." Within days, observatories around the world confirmed what Alan had discovered. The signals were coming from beyond our solar system, approximately 37 light-years away. More importantly, they contained mathematical sequences that couldn't possibly occur naturally. First contact had happened, even if only one side knew it so far. As news spread through scientific channels, government officials moved quickly to control information. The president called an emergency meeting with other world leaders at the United Nations headquarters in New York. Captain Olivia Wright stood at attention along the wall of the conference room. As military liaison to NASA, she had studied theoretical first contact scenarios for years. Now theory was becoming reality before her eyes. The signals contain prime number sequences, followed by what appears to be a form of mathematical language, explained Dr. George Barnes, director of SETI. "They're trying to establish basic communication, and we're certain these aren't from some classified satellite or deep space probe," asked the Russian president. "Absolutely certain," Dr. Barnes replied. "The origin point is a star system with no human presence." The room fell silent as the implications sank in. "We need to respond," said the European Union representative. "This is the most significant moment in human history." Captain Wright cleared her throat. "With respect, I recommend caution." All eyes turned to her. In nature, when a smaller creature announces itself to a larger one, the outcome is rarely favorable for the smaller one, she said. "We know nothing about who or what sent these signals. Their technology is clearly advanced beyond ours if they can transmit from that distance with such clarity." The Chinese premier nodded slowly. "Captain Wright makes a valid point. Perhaps observation before action is wise." Debate continued for hours, but eventually consensus emerged. Earth would listen, but not yet respond. 3 weeks after the first signals, observatories detected something new: unusual energy readings at the edge of our solar system. Scientists scrambled to understand what they were seeing. "It's not consistent with any known phenomenon," Alan explained to a panel of experts. "These energy patterns suggest some kind of folding of space." On monitoring screens around the world, the energy signatures intensified. Whatever was happening was getting stronger. In a secure underground facility in Colorado, Captain Wright reviewed the latest satellite data with growing concern. "How long until they reach Earth's orbit at current speeds?" she asked. A young analyst checked his calculations. "Approximately 72 hours, ma'am. But that's assuming they maintain current velocity." The red phone on her desk rang. It was the president. "Captain, I need your assessment. Are we looking at first contact?" She took a deep breath. "Sir, we're looking at first arrival. Contact began when they sent those signals. This is phase 2. Recommendations: alert our forces worldwide, but keep them non-provocative. And sir, it might be time to tell the public. Better they hear it from us than panic when these visitors make themselves known." As night fell across North America, unusual lights appeared in the sky. Too steady to be stars, too numerous to be planes. Within hours, similar reports came in from every continent. The waiting was over. Earth was no longer alone in the universe, and the galactic community had come to our doorstep. The ships appeared suddenly in Earth's orbit, 7 massive structures, each one larger than the largest human city. Their hulls gleamed with an iridescent material that seemed to shift colors as they moved through space. Military satellites captured images of the vessels before going offline one by one. John Russell, the United States Secretary of Defense, watched the monitors in the Pentagon's crisis room as chaos unfolded. Every major defense system worldwide reported interference. Radar screens showed static. Communication networks struggled to maintain connections. "Someone tell me we have some kind of countermeasure," John said, his voice steady despite the panic around him. A young officer approached with a tablet. "Sir, NASA reports the visitors have deployed smaller craft. They're taking positions over major cities worldwide. Outside government buildings across the globe, crowds gathered. Some carried welcome signs. Others held religious texts. Most just watched the sky with mixtures of fear and wonder." At the United Nations emergency session, Dr. Samantha Moore worked frantically to decode the new transmissions coming from the alien vessels. Her team of linguists and mathematicians had been analyzing the signals since they first appeared. "I think we've got it," she announced, pushing her glasses up her nose. "The basic structure is mathematical, but there are patterns suggesting language." The room fell silent as she played the translation through speakers. "People of Earth, you are now within territory claimed by the collective. Resistance is unnecessary and will result in harm. Integration is beneficial to lesser species. You have 7 rotations of your planet to accept our terms." The message repeated in different languages, cycling through each one methodically. Commander Eric Nelson peered out the viewport of the International Space Station. From his orbital perspective, he could see one of the alien ships clearly. It had opened sections of its hull, revealing what appeared to be scanning equipment aimed at Earth. "Houston, are you receiving my visuals?" he radioed. "Affirmative, Commander. Can you describe what you're seeing?" Eric adjusted his camera. "They're systematically scanning the surface. Each sweep covers approximately 500 square miles. It seems methodical, like they're taking inventory." Back in Washington, President Laura Martinez addressed the nation from the Oval Office. "My fellow Americans and citizens of Earth, today we face a moment unprecedented in human history. We are not alone in the universe, and advanced visitors have made contact. I urge everyone to remain calm. The world's governments are united in addressing this situation." What she didn't say was that military forces worldwide stood ready but helpless against technology they couldn't begin to understand. At NASA headquarters, Captain Olivia Wright reviewed the scans sent by Commander Nelson. "They're focusing on our resources," she concluded. "Water, minerals, metals. They're cataloging what we have. Not our cities, not our population centers." Asked Dr. Barnes. "Those are secondary targets in their scans." She pointed to the data. "This isn't a scientific expedition or a diplomatic mission. This is resource assessment." The next morning, smaller alien craft descended to hover above major capitals. In Washington, London, Beijing, Moscow, and other cities, the vessels projected holographic images of beings that appeared almost humanoid, but with proportions slightly wrong. Limbs too long, heads too large. "We are the voice of the collective," the beings announced simultaneously across the globe. "Your species has potential for service. Your resources have value. Accept integration and survive. Your response period begins now." Dr. Moore worked with her team to craft a message requesting more time, more information. The reply came immediately. 7 rotations. No extensions. The collective has claimed this system. As night fell on the first day, Captain Wright gathered with military and scientific leaders in a secure bunker. "They're not interested in conversation," she said grimly. "This is an empire that has set its sights on Earth." "Then what options do we have?" asked John Russell. No one had an answer. Not yet. The room was silent as the holographic display showed footage from 8 years earlier. The date stamp read April 17, 2029. In the video, Dr. Peter Collins stood in a sterile laboratory, his expression a mixture of excitement and disbelief. "Test subject 27 has demonstrated consistent results," he explained to the camera. We've confirmed a 78% success rate in controlled trials. The DNA anomaly we discovered last year isn't just unusual, it's functional. The recording continued as Dr. Collins displayed brain scans with unusual activity patterns. These neural pathways shouldn't be possible according to conventional neuroscience, yet here they are, and they're active in roughly 12% of our test subjects. John Russell paused the playback and turned to face the others in the bunker. This was classified at the highest level. Only 7 people in the government knew about the Collins Research Initiative. Captain Wright leaned forward. What exactly am I looking at? The discovery that humans possess latent psychic abilities, John said simply. Dr. Lisa Bennett, a quantum physicist who had been quietly observing until now, stood up. It's more than that. My team's research built on Peter's work. We discovered that human consciousness can, under specific circumstances, interact directly with the quantum field. In English, please, said President Martinez. Lisa sighed. Some people can move things with their minds. Others can sense emotions or occasionally glimpse thoughts. A very small percentage can do much more. The room erupted in skeptical murmurs. John raised his hand for silence. 4 years ago, the military began a covert program to identify and train individuals with these abilities. We called it Project Lighthouse. I have someone I'd like you to meet. The door opened, and a man in his 30s walked in. He looked ordinary, average height, brown hair, unremarkable features. If not for his sharp eyes, you might not notice him in a crowd. This is Kevin Grant, former Army Rangers, now part of Lighthouse. Kevin nodded to the room. He approached the conference table where a bottle of water stood. Without touching it, he caused the water inside to rise up in a perfect sphere, floating in midair. Jesus Christ, whispered the Secretary of State. No tricks, Kevin said, letting the water splash back into the bottle. And I'm not even the strongest one we found. Lisa Bennett continued. We believe all humans have this potential to varying degrees. It's dormant in most people, but with training and the right environmental triggers, it can be awakened. And how many trained individuals do we have? Asked President Martinez. 217 with confirmed abilities. John answered. Another 1,000 in various stages of training. Captain Wright stared at the water bottle. And you think these people can help us against an alien armada? We don't know, Lisa admitted, but their technology seems to interact with quantum fields in ways similar to how our subjects do. There might be a connection we can exploit. Dr. Moore, who had been quietly processing this information, finally spoke. The collective's message mentioned that we have potential for service. They might be detecting these abilities in our species, or they might want to harvest them, Captain Wright suggested grimly. Kevin placed a tablet on the table. There's something else you should see. When one of the alien ships scanned New Mexico yesterday, it lingered over our main training facility. Our people felt the scan, not just physically, but mentally. Several of them reported headaches and nosebleeds afterward. They're detecting our psychics, President Martinez realized. John nodded. And there's one more thing. During that scan, one of our strongest subjects, Susan Miller, reported that she briefly connected with whatever was scanning her. She said she sensed fear. The room fell silent as the implications sank in. The aliens are afraid of what humans might become, Lisa said softly. Our potential scares them. Then perhaps, said Captain Wright with the first hint of hope in her voice, we have something to work with after all. President Martinez stood up. How quickly can we gather all trained individuals? 24 hours, John replied. Do it. If we're going to send these invaders a message, let's make sure they understand it clearly. The United Nations Security Council met in an underground facility beneath Geneva. Maps on the wall showed the positions of the 7 alien ships. 4 days had passed since their arrival. 3 days remained until their deadline. Operation Lighthouse requires unprecedented cooperation, President Martinez explained. Every nation must divert power to the amplification grid. Every government must transport their trained psychics to the central facility. Representatives from 193 countries watched as John Russell outlined the plan. Susan Miller is our strongest telepath. Tests show she can project thoughts across thousands of miles. With amplification, we believe she can reach the collective ships in orbit. And what message will she send? Asked the British Prime Minister. Captain Wright stepped forward. A warning. One clear statement that Earth will not surrender. Not everyone was convinced. The room divided between those who wanted to fight and those who feared extinction. The collective has technology beyond our comprehension, argued the Japanese delegate. If we provoke them, they could destroy all life on Earth. If we surrender, we may no longer be human anyway, countered the representative from Kenya. After hours of debate, the vote passed. Operation Lighthouse would proceed. In Colorado, at a former military base now converted into a psychic research facility, Susan Miller prepared for her role. At 26 years old, she had spent the last 4 years discovering abilities she never knew she possessed. The amplification helmet will boost your signal exponentially, Dr. Bennett explained, adjusting the device on Susan's head. But the stress on your mind will be enormous. Susan nodded. I can handle it. The entire power grid of North America will be diverted to this facility for 3 minutes, Dr. Collins added. That's your window. In control rooms around the world, engineers prepared to redirect electricity from 6 continents. It would cause temporary blackouts worldwide, but if successful, it might save humanity. As final preparations continued, radar operators detected movement. The largest collective ship was descending toward Earth. They're coming early, Captain Wright reported. The alien ambassador is demanding immediate surrender. How much time do we need? President Martinez asked Dr. Bennett over the secure line. At least 2 more hours to complete the power connections. I'll try to buy you time, the president replied. In Washington, the holographic form of the alien representative materialized in the Oval Office. Its elongated limbs and oversized head gave it an unsettling appearance as it spoke with a voice that seemed to bypass the ears and appear directly in the mind. Your deliberation period is inefficient. The collective has determined integration should begin immediately. President Martinez stood tall. We were promised 7 days. We still have 3 remaining. Unnecessary delay. Your species shows concerning patterns. Compliance is required now. As the president attempted to negotiate, Major Daniel Ross received an alert at the Colorado facility. Satellite imagery showed 3 smaller alien craft approaching their location. We've been compromised, he told Dr. Bennett. They know what we're planning. How much of the amplification grid is operational? She asked. 70%. It might be enough, but Susan will need to push harder. Major Ross ordered his security teams into position. They had conventional weapons plus 20 trained psychics with defensive abilities. It wouldn't stop the alien craft for long, but perhaps long enough. Inside the amplification chamber, Susan sat cross-legged on the floor. Technicians rushed around her, completing final connections. They're coming, she said suddenly, eyes still closed. I can feel them searching for me. Can you hide your thoughts? Dr. Collins asked urgently. Not for long. They're stronger than I expected. Outside, the first alien craft appeared in the sky above the facility. Security teams moved into position as alarm sirens blared. Major Ross looked at his watch. 90 minutes until full power. We need to hold them off. Susan opened her eyes. We don't have 90 minutes. I need to try now. You won't have full amplification, warned Dr. Bennett. I'll have to be enough, Susan replied, closing her eyes again. Tell everyone to get ready. I'm going to need their help. Susan sat at the center of the chamber, surrounded by concentric circles of equipment. Scientists made last-minute adjustments while security teams reported the alien craft were now directly overhead. How much power do we have? Dr. Bennett asked. 68% and climbing. A technician responded. Power is being diverted from across North America and Europe now. Asia coming online in 3 minutes. Susan's breathing slowed as she prepared herself. The helmet on her head hummed with increasing energy. Dr. Collins monitored her vital signs with growing concern. Heart rate elevating. Brain activity spiking in the parietal lobe, he reported. Outside, Major Ross received word that the alien vessels had begun scanning the facility. The concrete walls provided some shielding, but everyone knew it wouldn't last. All psychics to defensive positions, he ordered. Priority is buying time for Susan. 20 men and women with varied abilities took positions throughout the complex. Some could create small force fields. Others could disrupt electronic signals. One could even generate localized electromagnetic pulses. None of them had ever faced alien technology before. In the command center, John Russell watched satellite feeds of the unfolding situation. The main collective ship is breaking off negotiations with the president, an analyst reported. They're repositioning over North America. In the amplification chamber, Susan opened her eyes. I can't wait any longer, she said. I can feel them scanning my mind. They know what we're trying to do. Dr. Bennett looked at the power readings. We're only at 72%. It will have to be enough. Susan replied. But I need help. She turned to Dr. Collins. Get every trained psychic who isn't on defense to join me mentally. I need their energy. The call went out. Across the facility, psychics not actively defending began to focus their minds toward Susan. In other facilities around the world, those who couldn't be transported did the same. Susan closed her eyes again. The helmet began to glow with blue light. The temperature in the room dropped suddenly as energy was converted. Power at 78%, the technician announced. Maximum we can achieve without Asia online. Susan took a deep breath. I'm beginning transmission. Her consciousness expanded outward, first filling the room, then the building, then rising upward toward the alien ships. The strain showed on her face as sweat beaded on her forehead despite the cold. In space, aboard the lead collective vessel, the alien commanders sensed the intrusion. Alarms sounded throughout their ship as unfamiliar energy patterns penetrated their shields. Susan's message was simple, a single thought projected with the combined mental force of hundreds of trained human minds. Leave or witness our power. The aliens' response was immediate. Weapons systems on the smallest ship activated, targeting the facility below. They're preparing to fire, Major Ross shouted into his radio. Susan's body tensed. Blood trickled from her nose as she focused harder. The other psychics felt her pull on their energy, drawing them into a unified consciousness. Dr. Henry Williams, who had been waiting for this moment, activated the final stage of the plan from his position in the command center, initiating global psychic network. Now, across the planet, thousands of people with even minimal psychic potential suddenly felt a connection to Susan's mind. Most had no idea what was happening, only that they were part of something larger. In orbit, the alien weapon fired. A beam of energy lanced toward the facility. Susan opened her eyes, which now glowed with the same blue light as the helmet. She raised her hand. The beam never reached the ground. It stopped midair, held by an invisible force. Return to sender, Susan whispered. The energy reversed direction, striking the alien craft. Systems throughout the ship failed as the crew experienced something they had never encountered before: human psychic defense. The commander of the collective forces watched in disbelief as the smallest ship in their fleet began to implode, crushed by invisible forces from all sides. The demonstration was complete. Humanity had revealed its hidden power. The 6 remaining collective ships hung motionless in Earth's orbit. For 24 hours after the destruction of their smallest vessel, they made no moves and sent no messages. Global defense systems remained on high alert as humanity waited. In the Colorado facility, Susan Miller recovered slowly in the medical wing. The effort had nearly killed her, but doctors were optimistic about her recovery. Around her bed stood President Martinez, Captain Wright, and Admiral Karen Phillips, who had flown in from the Pacific Fleet. The aliens are confused, Susan said weakly. I can still feel echoes of their thoughts. They don't understand what happened. Admiral Phillips studied the tactical display on her tablet. Their ships have maintained formation, but they've retracted all scanning equipment. They're in a defensive posture. So our demonstration worked, the president said. Captain Wright shook her head. For now. But we need to understand something critical. What they witnessed was our maximum effort. Nearly every trained psychic on Earth contributing. Our power grids pushed to the limit. And we managed to destroy their smallest ship. And they have 6 more, all larger, Admiral Phillips added. Dr. Michelle Garcia entered the room, carrying research files. As the leading theorist on human psychic development, she had been analyzing the data from the confrontation. The good news is that we've confirmed our abilities affect their technology, she explained. The better news is that what they witnessed was just the beginning of what humans might eventually do. Explain, ordered the president. Dr. Garcia displayed brain scans on a nearby monitor. Susan's neural pathways have changed since the event. New connections forming, dormant regions activating. The same is happening in varying degrees to everyone who participated. We're evolving, Captain Wright asked. Accelerating. In evolutionary terms, it's like we've been carrying a folded map for thousands of years, and we're finally starting to open it. Outside the medical wing, John Russell received an urgent message. He entered the room quickly. We've intercepted communications between their ships, he announced. Dr. Moore's team has translated portions. They're referring to humans as mind demons and debating whether to retreat or call for reinforcements. They're afraid, Susan whispered. A communications officer burst into the room. Madam President, the alien commander is requesting to speak with Earth's leaders. In the United Nations General Assembly Hall, representatives from all nations gathered once again. The holographic form of the collective commander materialized in the center of the room. Its appearance seemed more rigid than before, its movements more cautious. We acknowledge your species possesses unexpected capabilities, it stated. The collective will temporarily postpone integration to assess this development. President Martinez stepped forward. We are not interested in postponement. We reject integration completely. The alien's large eyes blinked slowly. Integration is inevitable for all species. The collective has existed for 12 million of your years. We have incorporated thousands of worlds. Not this one, the president replied firmly. The alien commander tilted its oversized head. You believe your demonstration proves your strength. It does not. Your defense required maximum effort and caused severe biological strain to your psychics. The collective can return with greater numbers. Admiral Phillips moved beside the president. Perhaps, but return too soon, and you'll find us much stronger. What you witnessed today was our first step, not our last. This was partly bluff. Admiral Phillips knew that Earth's defense had been pushed to its absolute limit. But the alien couldn't know that for certain. The commander was silent for several moments. Finally, it spoke again. The collective will withdraw to reassess. Your system will be marked for future evaluation. How much future? Demanded President Martinez. That is undetermined, the alien replied before its holographic form disappeared. In orbit, the 6 massive ships began to move. They accelerated away from Earth, their engines creating ripples in space as they departed. In the Colorado facility, Susan smiled faintly as she sensed their retreat. They'll be back, she said quietly, but they're giving us time to prepare. More than they realize. The sunrise over New Mexico painted the desert landscape in hues of orange and gold. 5 years had passed since the collective's retreat. Where once there had been a secret military facility, now stood the gleaming campus of the International Psychic Academy. Its architecture blended Earth's diverse cultures with elements inspired by the alien technology humans had studied from the damaged collective ship that crashed during their hasty departure. Jack Wilson walked through the Academy's main courtyard, watching students practice their abilities. As director of training, He had overseen the development of thousands of psychics since the program went public. What had once been hidden was now humanity's greatest priority. A young woman sat cross-legged on the grass, levitating several metal spheres in complex patterns. Nearby, a group of teenagers practiced mental communication across increasing distances. In a reinforced chamber visible through transparent walls, more advanced students worked with recovered alien materials. "Impressive progress with the Beta Group," said Dr. Michelle Garcia, falling into step beside Jack. Her role in understanding psychic development had made her one of the most respected scientists on the planet. "They're advancing faster than we expected," Jack replied. "This generation seems to activate more naturally than we did. Less effort, stronger results. Evolution in action," Michelle said with a smile. "The human brain adapting to new possibilities." They reached the edge of the campus where a shuttle waited to take them to the launch facility. As they climbed aboard, Jack looked back at the academy with pride. What had begun as a desperate defense program had transformed into humanity's greatest achievement. The shuttle rose smoothly into the air, powered by a hybrid of Earth technology and principles reverse-engineered from collective debris. 30 minutes later, they arrived at the massive complex hidden within the mountains. Inside the central hangar, engineers and scientists swarmed around an enormous vessel unlike anything humans had built before. Its sleek hull incorporated both traditional materials and psychically responsive elements that glowed with a subtle blue light. "The Defiance is nearly ready," announced Chief Engineer Paul Martins as Jack and Michelle approached. "Final calibrations on the Psi drive are complete. She'll be ready for her first test flight next week." Jack placed his hand on the ship's hull, feeling the subtle resonance with his mind. The vessel had been designed to amplify and channel psychic energy for both propulsion and defense. It represented humanity's response to the collective threat. A ship that could potentially match their technology. "And our crew?" Jack asked. "In final training," Paul replied. "Captain Foster wants to speak with you about the mission parameters." In the simulation center adjacent to the hangar, Captain Linda Foster led her crew through emergency drills. As humanity's most powerful telepath since Susan Miller, Linda had been the obvious choice to command Earth's first psychic starship. "Successful recovery from drive failure simulation," she announced as Jack entered. Her crew, a diverse mix of pilots, engineers, and psychics, looked exhausted but satisfied. Linda dismissed them for a break and joined Jack at the observation window overlooking the Defiance. "She's beautiful," Linda said. "And deadly," Jack added. "The Defense Coalition approved your mission plan this morning. Once testing is complete, you're authorized to take her beyond the solar system." Linda nodded, her expression serious. "The long-range sensors detected activity at the edge of our scanning range. The collective may be sending scouts. All the more reason to show them we're not hiding on our planet waiting for their return," Jack said. That evening, global leaders gathered for the Defiance's official commissioning ceremony. The event was broadcast worldwide. President Martinez, now serving as head of the Earth Defense Coalition, stood at the podium. 5 years ago, humanity faced extinction or subjugation. We responded with our sole warning that we would not surrender what makes us human. Today, we take the next step. The Defiance represents not just our determination to protect Earth, but our commitment to claim our rightful place among the stars. As night fell, Linda Foster took her position on the bridge of the Defiance. Her crew was ready. The engineers gave their final clearance. "Psi drive initializing," reported the navigation officer. Linda closed her eyes, connecting her mind to the ship's systems. Around her, the other psychics did the same, creating a network of consciousness that powered the vessel. The collective believed they found a primitive world ripe for conquest, Linda said as the ship's systems hummed to life.